Absolutely.
Because in some places it means what group or tribe or gang you're affiliated with.
Absolutely.
And I heard that a lot when I first arrived to LA back in a few decades ago. But the other part is where you're from, because everybody's in LA is from somewhere else. So I would have to say, well, I'm a refugee, and they all kind of like, yeah, because they're all refugees or immigrants. But I said, I'm from the Republic of Texas. It's a little pause, because if you know Texans, if you know anybody in the house, they still think themselves as a republic, right? So I was born in Texas. People, again, heritage there. I identify myself as Chicano or Mexican American, but the border crossed our family. We've been there for a certain number of generations. My dad pastored from a PK in the Nazarene church, so a third generation. And so when he came back, well, he moved over, brought the family here to Southern California, here in San Diego. Well, we went along with him, right? And they grew up here basically in Southern California. As a Nazarene, I didn't know anything else to do but go to school. And the only school I knew of, my dad told me, was at that time Pasadena College. I'm aging myself here. And then moved down here to Point Loma. I was talking to somebody, where was career counseling? Because I got a degree in biblical literature. Koine, Greek, and Hebrew. How many jobs are out there for that? Professors? Yeah, maybe. And then nothing else to do. My dad said, hey, education is not going to hurt you. He didn't say it was going to help me, but it won't hurt me. And so I stayed on and got a master's in religion here. Still didn't know what to do, but I went off to seminary in Kansas City. It was a great, really economic decision at that point. You know, where can you get a accredited degree, and got a degree in theology, and bumped into one of your professors here, Michael Lodahl, and he stayed on the straight path, and I went off to be part of the pastoral team at Los Angeles First Church of the Nazarene, which some of you may know as Nazarenes and others won't know. But if you don't know, it's the mother church. And lo and behold, I ended up at the mother church of our denomination. And I just got back after a 20-year hiatus. The new pastor was my youth group. And so he said, you got any time? I go, well, I got a little bit. So I come back. So I pastored. I was professor at Claremont School of Theology. I worked with World Vision in US and did some transformational development with them internationally. And so I'm about community and leadership development. And the venues have been really different over the years, but it's all about transforming communities and incarnating the kingdom, right?
No, absolutely. And I hear a lot of similarities with your family background and your how you navigated to this current space that you're in. I'm third generation San Diego. My grandfather actually went here at Cal Lutheran way back in the day. So about dating yourself, but he was ordained here as a minister here, right?
Okay.
And so in having that family background, that positionality, why you come to the work is super important. And as students, we want you to know that your interests, your passions, your background, they're important. They matter for this work. And so I want to ask you specifically about your advocacy work, right?
Yeah.
So I know, again, pastor's kid, I'm a pastor's grandkid, right? I went to church all the time, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, Sundays, all day. I know what it's like.
Yes.
Right. But when for you was that moment when you realized that you want to make a career out of this, when you want to change, that family background, that calling into a vocation?
Yeah, it is a calling. It's a calling. It actually took place here when I was at Point Loma, and I had to do my own study about my own heritage, right? When I was in Texas and growing up there, I was called a Mexican. So you were either a Mexican or an American. An American was code word, right? And so I understood myself as being deficient because the way I was treated, right? I didn't know what was going on when I was a little boy. When I was kept after school, even though I got an A on my test, I was kept after school under the teachers thinking I was cheating. Obviously, I had to be cheating because a brown-skinned kid doesn't get good grades. But I didn't know that. So when I came here and began to do some of my own studies and looking in particularly in liberation theology, there was vocabulary that I didn't even know applied to me. The sense of dehumanization, oppression, a disregard and undervaluing me because of my heritage or color of skin. And so I had to kind of go back and do homework about what had transpired in my life, how I had inculcated that trauma, if you will, and saying, this is not what we're supposed to be about. If we're children of God, there's something more powerful and needed. So I began to look at avenues of how I can express that. So when I landed in Los Angeles to work with young people, I was going to transform the great brown hope. I was going to bring it on and the kingdom of God. And the guy said, you know, you really are helpful in understanding who God is, but we got an issue here. And I go, what is that? He go, well, they leaned in on me. He said, we know how to get money. And I went like, I try to play cool and go like, yeah. But in my head, I was going, oh man, what's going on here? It said, but we're tired of looking over our shoulders and we want to be able to earn it. All right, so here I am. I told you all my pedigree in terms of my education at that time. I just didn't have the right prescription to see that in the scripture, in our text, our holy text, there was an understanding of a holistic understanding of what God wanted us to be about. Now, I grew up in a Spanish-speaking environment. I kind of had this told to me because when we read in English, the righteousness of God, in Spanish is la justicia de Dios. It's a more appropriate, accurate translation of righteousness to justice. So these young men were telling me, if you really believe this God you're teaching us about or introducing us to, then that God needs to make things right. And that making things right, he needs to provide a way for us to have legitimate employment. Will you do that? Because if you're not going to do that, then we got to do what we got to do. Well, then that opened up again the understanding of the systemic and structural issues that prevent people, a lot of people, to achieve what we always talk about, the good life, right? And they knew how to get things, but they knew there was a lot more to it. So that was a turning point for me. It really would coalesce all that had been taught but missed, understanding how I lived my life and experience, and then being challenged by these young people to not just talk about individual transformation and relationship with God, but how does that translate into communal kind of experience? The context in which people live, a much more holistic and I think more enriched for understanding of God's wish for us. Right?
No, absolutely. And there's a couple of things you said that really, I think, stand out. One, the liberation theology, right? We just had Dr. Cornell West on campus a couple of weeks ago. That was fantastic, right? But as far as thinking of, again, God as, on the side of the oppressed, God as a God, not just of the big, but in the small, in the day-to-day, and the mundane, right?
Yeah, Cornell was a good student of mine. No.
But again, that's very important. But then also, what is the practical nature of our faith, right? What does that look like in practice? You said the young man questioning you, challenging you, right? I know what this says and these ideas, but what does that look like for me on a day-to-day that has to live here? I know, we're promised heaven, we're promised salvation. I know that, but what I got to do on, what is today, Wednesday, Thursday, right? What do I do today, right? And making sure as Christians, as staff at a Christian university, right, that we are always cognizant of that, the context that our community, that our students are in, and we are serving their needs. That's what the church has always done. The role of Christians is to serve, right? That's what we're supposed to do, and making sure we're aware of that.
Yeah, and I'm going to challenge you on that because I was taught, yes, we're going to serve. I was here at Point Loma. We had a World Impact come, and we were involved in that. We had other people talking about serving. Even in our denomination, we talk about compassionate ministries, but that compassion about serving. I'm talking about transformation. Because if I responded to the young people with what we usually would do, I need to create a job program for these young people, I will still be doing that. You will be asking me questions about how do you develop a youth development program for young people to get jobs. I needed to transform the community. I needed to understand, not me, but how do we go about transforming such that all people, all young people have an opportunity, not just those that come through the doors in my church or into my program, but engaging. So that's what I'm talking about, the structures and the systems that prevent and impede people from living out the fullness of what God wants for them, right? And these young people were saying that. So I had to really rethink and look at that. And I can say with a little bit of human pride, that if you go to my community in Los Angeles, Koreatown now, about 150,000, 200,000 people there, every business has young people working on it. So that's transformation. So it's not just looking at the need, because I looked at it, the needs, but these young people, they were saying we have skills and abilities, and don't limit us by how you see us. but see us with what you're talking about, that we're created in the image of God, right? So they have gifts and abilities. We define these issues like, oh, there's gangs. That gang's not the problem. That's a symptom of what's going on in terms of what these young people don't have access to. So they're going to utilize their gifts and abilities to do what they got to do, right? To create a sense of community and identity, have some sense of power in terms of the powerlessness they feel in society, and buy the things that society tells them they need to have some sense of status, right? If you're going to buy those $200 shoes, you got to get money. So you got to hustle, right? But you can't put that in a resume, right? It's very hard to say, even applying for a school like this, to say, what do you do? I hustle. That's hard. But if we understand what those skills are to do that, then how do we able to take those and transfer them into other things that at least society would deem acceptable?
Absolutely. And that's part of the work of what we do over at Career Services, is making sure the students are able to articulate the skills that they're gaining and what that means.
Yeah, where were you when I was graduating?
I know. I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry. We're doing the work here. So can you talk more specifically about that? I love the correction on, again, making transformational change and addressing the systems and the barriers that exist for, not only students, but community, right?
Yes.
But what does that work actually tangibly look like? And so I want you to talk about some of the, your previous work, but also your current work. What does that specifically look like in terms of an organization or in terms of specific job roles?
Yeah, so none of this happens by one individual or one organization. It is one of collaboration. That is, you're working together, not only with the institutions and organizations that maybe have capacity and the resources to do this, but the people themselves that are affected by it, right? And I learned this when I was doing a food program. Okay, right, it's responding to people who are hungry. So we have a food program in our program in our church. So when I went out there and said, I want to evaluate and see how we can improve our program to make sure that they get the food they have, 9 out of 10 said, we want a job, right? They didn't want to be in a line. They said, hey, I want a job. Can you help us get a job? There it is, the economic aspect of it too. I also found some of these people selling the food we gave them. Whoa, what are you doing? We're trying to be good, charitable, loving God by giving you food, and you go sell it? And they said, hey, wait a minute, Michael. The food you give us, we appreciate, but we don't know how to eat it because it's not part of our culture, our background. We need to sell it to get food that we know how to prepare and eat. Wow, that, again, sometimes we assume we know what's good for another person or group of people. So this aspect of transformation and advocacy that maybe it puts me in a role these days to amplify the voices that are not being heard, right? And they could be not heard because of their identity, their age, basically their social status, right? And so how can I then, as a person who believes in the kingdom with dropping the G, but the kingdom, the relationship we have, to make it possible for others to be at the table where decisions are being made. And that sometimes means I cultivate and help unleash the power, right? Not empower, unleash the power they have by enhancing or cultivating or nurturing the gifts they inherently have, and then say, hey, you got it, you take it from here. So I do a lot of advocacy by being at these tables to say, how do we get other people who should be here? Because I have privilege, right? I have a title, you call me doctor, I don't prefer doctor. Eminence is pretty good, I can deal with that. But, and I have status in the community. So how do I leverage that, right, to help others or understand and open up the doors and pathways for them?
No, and I think recognizing our own privilege, right, whatever that means, wherever
Yes.
you're at, is very important. I am a second-year doctoral student, and I too will ask that people call me doctor when that happens. It'll be earned. But it's a very privileged thing to be able to be a doctoral student. It's a very privileged thing to be able to be on this campus, right?
Yes.
And so what do you do with that,
Yes.
right? And so again, opening doors for other people, making sure that they have their voices heard, making sure that they have opportunities, and like you said earlier, making sure that in whatever ways possible, we can get rid of those barriers, that we can make sure that we are addressing their needs, not the needs that we think, of the community, but specifically what are those specific needs?
Yeah, and I want to get from needs. I want to be able to enhance or expose other people to the assets and resources people have, right? Even from the child, they have an incredible view of life, and we need to listen to them sometimes. and the individuals that we would think because they've been traumatized or marginalized, how do we gonna create and lift up what they already have within them or don't even know they have within them in order to do that. So move away from a needs perspective to one that's asset or strength oriented, right? And then know that. So I may have a few, alphabet soup after my name, but that doesn't make me an expert in all people's lives, right? So I need to hear that. So a big part of this is listening. And then as a person who's passionate about something, whatever pain and trauma I carry with me, not to personalize it against somebody else, right? But understand that they too are, can I say, have been shaped by the system and structures in which they live. So it's not them who I should be angry about or passionate about changing. God didn't change them. It's how do I gauge those other aspects that really put them in those positions and puts me and maybe at a different place, right?
No, absolutely. And I like how you talked about, again, there's two aspects of this, right? We have the macro, the systemic, the institutional level, community level of things, but there's also the personal experience and the individuals and relationships that take place. So there can be challenges there.
Absolutely.
Right? Can you talk about some of those challenges and then how do you navigate that and what keeps you going during those when you
That's a great question. How about the next one? No, I'll try that. One is what are the challenges I have? So this goes back to some experiences where we were advocating for a school in our community, as well as more green space for people because we're a very densely populated area. So I was part of a group. So again, you never do this alone. And then because I was trying to create a much more collaborative approach to a solution of how everybody could have a win-win, it happened to be a piece of property right there in the middle of our neighborhood, and a big organization came and we're going to build a big skyscraper, and the school wanted that. And so I would try to bring some reconciliation, if you will, that word. And then I was told, then the word got out that I was hired out. I got a job at this institution, this organization. Happened to be the Trump organization way back when. I go like, you all know me. How can you actually conceive that I would be bought out, so to speak, right? So there's a challenge that no matter what you're about or doing, people will have a different interpretation on what you do. We even have that in Nehemiah, where he was building the walls again, right? And there were some people saying, hey, who are you and what are you doing? And so there's an aspect of that. So what keeps me going is really understanding that I'm only, and I don't want to be trite about this, or cliches, a vehicle, right? And I need to be held accountable as for sure, and understanding how we engage this process. And it's a process. We finally got to school. Hallelujah, we got a school. But when we started the placards out there and just making a fuss and talking to the president of the school board, my children were in elementary school. We finally got to school, high school, the Robert F. Kennedy High School complex. I already had become a grandparent. So my children that I wanted to have a school to go to were already out of the neighborhood, but at least we have it for the next generation, right? So we understand this process, this aspect of transformation may be more than a 3-year, 4-year, 5-year process. It may be longer. Usually it's about 10 to 15 to do that. So that passion needs to be always, the flames of that need to be fanned. And we find that by working with like-minded people. And again, I don't want to be trite, but finding the words that are there in the sacred text about what we're about, and to be reminded that who I belong to and what this is about. It is seeking the justice of God. That's it, right? When John the Baptist's disciples went to Jesus, are you the one? He didn't say, well, how many people coming to synagogue on Sabbath? He didn't say that. Or how many people have now, changed their way of, he said, how many people are people seeing, people walking? Are they being liberated? That's the tangible aspect of the kingdom.
No, absolutely. And I want to just ask even, I know it was a tough question,
That's all right.
but just to even go a little bit deeper, because I feel like if you were doing justice work, which is doing the Lord's work, right? I don't know about you, but I have a hard time turning the other cheek, right? When attacks come, whether they're, words, whether there's different stuff that comes out. So
Yeah.
how do if you're going to be doing justice work, there's going to be opposition.
Yeah,
Right? You have to
absolutely.
expect that, right?
Yeah.
Understanding that it's going to be long work, right? It's going to be
Right.
tough, but there's going to be opposition.
Yes.
Do you have any advice for dealing with that opposition? How do
Yeah.
you carry yourself again
Right.
as a Christian, but
Yeah.
doing work against?
Well, and the Bible says that you have to lay hands on people sometimes. Oh, that's a prayer, right? No, not prayer. I'm not saying the other time. I surround myself with like-minded people, right? That maybe continue to engage in this process, so I don't do this alone. So my salvation it may be a private and personal individual decision, but it's a communitarian enterprise. It's always been that way. We sometimes just misread that. So I look for other people, and that's why that keeps me going too. And sometimes, with the big thing about self-care and people talk about meditation now, whatever, yeah, those are elements of continue to do that. Mine happens to be every morning. Can I just be a little bit transparent when I'm taking a shower or whatever? I'm really open, I'm washing the hair, and I'm going, give me some, and for me, that's just understanding I'm starting a new day. I'm responding to what has transpired the previous day. God, free me, cleanse me of the negative thoughts that may come into my mind, and help me to just see, the truth, and that maybe I don't see right now, right? So the prayer is really important. Working together and finding like-minded people. The other day I was doing a workshop on exegeting the community for young people, and then a couple of couples came up at different times and said, we live in our neighborhood, we live in your neighborhood, and we're doing these things about trying to do community building. And I was going like, thank God, who are you? I want to spend time with you. And they were thinking, I can give them something, but their energy, their excitement in the midst of the challenge they're facing really fed me. So those aspects of it too.
No, and I'm glad you touched on that, because yes, it is challenging. I like how you talk about that reorienting your mind each day.
Yes.
Not each week, not each month. And sometimes for me, it's we go an hour and 10-minute increments. It's, that reorientation of what my focus needs to be, what my disposition needs to be in every space. So I'm making sure that I'm having the care and consideration like I'm supposed to. So can you talk about some of those rewarding moments, and what does it feel like to do this work as a vocation, as a profession, right? To me, it's a blessing, it's an honor, it's a privilege, right?
Yes.
And it's going to be tough, but it is rewarding, right? Can you talk a little bit?
Yes. So sometimes I just got to understand that I may people talk about it, I hate to be trite, till the soil. Others are gonna plant the seeds, and sometimes you won't, because transformation takes a while, you may not see the fruit of that effort. I thank God for internet now. And just reflecting back on those youth that came in, right, to ask for, hey, we want to work. We're tired of hustling, and then create that aspect of it. So I went back, I needed to get more educated, more tools, let's say. And so I went to UC Berkeley, got a graduate degree in urban planning. So I came back, but by that time, the young people had moved on. So people said, what happened to them? So once in a while, they'll find me and they go, hey, you the Michael Mata used to hang with us on 3rd and Vermont? And I go, yeah, that's me. What's this? Hey, we're really thankful for what you've done. And I go, yeah, what's going on? Well, we're not on America's Most Wanted list. And I go like, what? And then LOL, right? That's they then show me a photo of their family, their home, their children. I'm just going like, all praise to God, right? That keeps me going. And when I see those aspects that, in spite of my own failures and shortcomings, somehow God has reached them and they saw something different. And in their lives, and they made something of it, right? They moved on, and they're making a contribution to their lives and their society. Those are elements that are happening. It could be as simple as in my neighborhood, which was really treeless. And when you think about a community that has no trees or greens, the sun just beats down on the cement, right? It's hot. Your dog doesn't like walking. It runs around because the little pads are getting hot. Well, we planted over a period of a year or so, 100 jacarandas, right? Now, every season it becomes purple. I mean, you got to pick up and clean up. People complain about that. It's beautiful, but it enhances the quality of life there just by walking there. So it could be systemic kinds of issues to just the environmental aspects of it that don't seem like huge, but it's transformational. And we work together. So I know my neighbors better, right? That's a success. How many people know their neighbors across the street or what have you, or down the street, or they can walk out and say, hey, how are you? And call the names. Like once in a while, I forget I don't have enough money when I go to the cleaners. The guy go, hey, next time, right? I go like, whoa, when do you hear that? Next time you can pay me back. And you go like, well, next time might be another half a year from now. I go, take care of it. So those relationships, I think, for me, really said this time and effort of being present and coming alongside is worth it.
Absolutely. I love talking about the tree, planting the trees and what that means and what that looks like just to have, you know, that beauty and what that means to see that every day. We know something, a little bit of something like this being on campus here, right? There's decent views. I would say some decent weather that we have here, but it does something to you.
Oh, definitely. And I kind of believe when I come here, because right in here it used to be all green. You could throw a Frisbee for 100 yards. Now you bump up against the window or door or whatever. And I'm going like,
Yeah.
So it's, you know, deja vu in a different way. I wish it was different, but that's what it is. So be it.
We've touched on a lot of different things. So we obviously talked about social justice. We talked about faith. We talked about community. We talked about, you know, being out in work. I want to try to tie those together, right? And see, okay, what does it mean to be a person of faith, but work out in the world? What does that look like? But also, what does it mean to be a social justice oriented person and working with Christians? Because we know, again, there can be some tensions there in pushing towards social justice. So can you talk a little bit about that and those tensions that exist?
Okay. Well, I feel fortunate in Los Angeles because it's very diverse and a lot of different communities as well. But I still am called to work in, let's say, non-faith environments or a secular, at least it's not promoted as a faith-based or faith-rooted initiative. And so I've been working in the past, I just finished up there in terms of what are the epidemics in Southern California and South LA is the spike in sexually transmitted infections, right? STDs or STIs among 12-year-olds to 20-year-olds, right? And we can talk about the factors that contribute to that, but these happen to be primarily females of color and males as well, right? So I was part of a strategy team, and I designed this collective impact approach. That is, you bring all sectors together. So the public health department said they called everybody, juvenile hall, the school, other medical, professionals, researchers. And then we got to the table. I said, well, where's the church? There's no church here, no people of faith. And they go, well, you know how they are? They're just abstinence only. And I said, well, public health people, and you all know that abstinence is the only way you're going to get infected. So I was trying to make the case that they need to be at the table. And what convinced them was, well, I knew that in South LA, there was 1,300 congregations identified, and many of them probably share facilities with other congregations. So just the sheer number of them said, you can't ignore the sector to do that. In fact, they're probably the ones that are going to be most heard in some communities. So I made the case. And I said, not all of them are going to respond, but there's enough allies there for us to bring them in. And we did. And they began to drive this initiative. We're now creating an interfaith toolkit for churches to use to address these issues, right? So being a voice, at that time, amplifying the voice of the faith community. And they had something to offer and just demonstrate that. And right now I do a lot of consulting with the RAND Corporation that does a lot of work in health disparities and the role of congregations in bringing about health. And that's what I was late this morning. Well, getting here in a way was working on with that project. So there's a place for us. And I think we have something to offer in many ways. We could talk more about that. Now, with my faith community, I said, you have something going on. You need to be at the table. So I'm part of a county-wide coalition on how the faith community could help in homelessness. So we're doing an asset assessment of what churches already have going on, but we want to highlight what the faith community does and demonstrate to the powers that be and funding agencies that with more support or engagement or even connecting one another, we could create and weave a stronger net for those that are falling through the so-called cracks, right? So I'm working both sides, helping the second community understand the value and contribution to the faith community, and then asking the faith community to step up. And most of the time, they don't have the tools that haven't been taught this. It wasn't certainly in seminary, but we can go ahead and provide those tools and opportunities for them to be light and salt in the community.
Yeah, no, and I like how you talk about both communities, right? But your unique experience, your background allows you to be that bridge and connecting them to the community, taking the community to the services, to the resources, right?
Yes.
Everybody at the table together. So
Yes.
you're having conversations, dialogue with each other and coming up with different solutions.
Right. And once we get to know each other, then there's a little trust, and then we can go and work on some of the more challenging issues in the community.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, you got it.
I have a couple more questions for you, but I would just want to make sure that if you have questions in the audience or our online audience, if you have questions, you can shoot them through. We're paying attention to those.
I'll take a rebuttal as well. So.
There we go. So the challenge has
Or a
been thrown
revelation.
down.
You know, I believe in that. Okay, got it.
The challenge has been thrown down. So, so I want to ask, just to piggyback on the last question. You know, we have students here that we go at a faith-based institution, right?
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's what do I do with that? You know, as a Christian, as a student, what do I do with my passion for social justice? How do I make that a career when you don't make a lot of money in nonprofit work or religion, or if there's high burnout, or if there's all these challenges that we're talking about, right?
Yes, thank you.
What is some good advice for those students who have those passions? Obviously, they chose to come here for a specific reason. They're on this talk right now for a specific reason. What kind of advice can you give them who do want to make a life out of this because it is their call?
Right. Well, that's a great question. One is we're not the Messiah, right? And sometimes we're kind of lifted up as, again, like I made a tongue-in-cheek. I was a great brown hope in my neighborhood when they called me to the community and work in the church, because the neighborhood was changing and they thought I could do something different about that. So it's not us. It's wholly God working through us and the Holy Spirit and guiding us and giving us enlightenment and not, it's like keeps me humble. Right? If you don't get humble, then people around you, like your family, will keep you humble, right? So that I don't work on that. But the other aspect of it, that any career path can contribute to bringing about God's justice in the world. So I have a brother, and unfortunately he passed because of COVID. He wanted to be a medical doctor and to work in the margins. And he did that. And he believed in that and brought the best, what he knew, to the betterment of other people. I have another brother who he didn't come here. I mean, my brother David was a graduate of Point Loma. The other brother went to another school. We still loved him. And he wanted to go and learn how to make money. I'm like, what? Hey, that's almost counter to what we've been taught, we sacrifice and pick up our cross and, do this work. And he said, I want to know how to make money so I can help other people, build wealth in a more contributive way. So they can also be steward of what God has given them to enhance the quality of life of other people. So I can see the end goal of everything, what we do. And I really like Jesuit universities. The end goal of education is not a better job, a better paying job, is to make the world a better place, right? I think that's what I'm really encouraged about. So when I teach, I'm not teaching them, well, I want to help you get a better job and get a good resume. I'm helping you gain tools and knowledge that wherever you end up, this world becomes a better place, especially for those who are marginalized.
Can I hire you to come and work at career services? This is exactly what we talk about, what we preach in career services. It's you can do this work in a variety of different ways.
Yes.
It doesn't look, and there isn't a linear career path anymore. It just isn't the way the world works. What we've experienced with COVID, right? The world has completely changed. It's a world of flux, right? And
yes.
So understanding that, yes, you can take your your background, your religious background, your ideas, your beliefs, your passions, and you can apply them in any job that there is.
We're getting skills, right? And people are now somebody said, I graduated with a communications degree, but worked in, advocacy in terms of people who have been traumatized and domestic violence. Completely different, but we do that. Those skills are really possible to transfer into other ways. Hello, biblical literature major, and here I am working, in terms of community transformation.
So what was some advice you have for students, again, who want to get involved in work, that want to touch the work, don't just want to experience it and learn about it and get the information, but want to start volunteering at places or looking at internships and jobs? What are some things that they could be doing now to get involved?
Yeah, I think all those areas in terms of volunteering and participating, internships are great to understand what's going on, even if it's just exploring that a career path and then seeing if it's a good match or not. In the city and doing this work, it's about presence. Do you show up, right? I am called a lot of places because I've been showing up for 30 years, right? I show up, so I just, maybe it's a pain in somebody's, backside, but I show up, right? And so in terms of showing up, showing that you want to learn and you can contribute. Well, that's how I did. I volunteered doing children's ministry down in Otay when I was here, and just got to know better the community and what those families were facing, and always asking, how does my training or my education helping me better understand what's going on? And then how may I also begin to know how my role should be in that place? And maybe it's not going to be in particular one issue or what have you, but wherever I'm at, I'm looking for that. So there's a whole aspect now in terms of finance and faith, capital, venture capital in raising all that. So you can look into those arenas. It's not just IT, it's not just social work, but those are all elements or two. And all those skills are needed. I couldn't do that alone.
Absolutely.
So get out there and explore. I would say this, don't rush to an MA after you get out of college. Spend a little time, because my best MA, is because I already spent about 3 or 4 years in the community. And so when I went to Berkeley, I exploited that degree. I got everything I wanted out of that to work in terms of coming back to LA and doing something difference. I mean, I don't undervalue my MA here or in seminary, but I was just going from one degree to another. I needed to really experience what was going on to understand how I can use the next degree or certificate in order to make this a better world.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate that. I'm actually wondering, we're planning on doing an activity. I was planning to do an activity with the students and doing Q&A. Do you mind joining us for the activity and helping in the activity? Sure. Okay, before we get into Q&A, is that okay with you guys? Is that okay with Katie, John? We good with that?
Yeah, it's in my contract, right, Katie?
Okay, cool. Just make sure we're not paying over. Okay, cool, awesome. So, and I do want to get into that because, again, I like how you said that, the purpose of education, right, is to prepare students to make a difference in this world ultimately. Yes. Right. But if you ask parents, they're going to say it's to get a better job. And actually, if you ask students why they come to college, and it is to get a better job. We have research that shows that 67% of students said it's to prepare for a specific job or career. 55% say to increase financial opportunities, and 48% say they want to stay competitive in the job market. Yes. So, our job then as a university is to make sure we're meeting that need, right? We're preparing our students for a world of work, like we've said, that is constantly in flux, right? And notice I just said the university is our job. It's not just career services job, because we know that only about 40% of students come into career services. I am in a doctoral program, and I will tell you that the first time that I went into a career services office was when I walked into my office this August. Right? As an industry, we are doing a poor job of reaching our students, right? And so to do that, what our strategy here at Point Loma Nazarene is to integrate it into every aspect of the student experience. That means doing events like this and bringing in amazing people that can share their experience and connecting students, making sure that they can see what it looks like to do this work. It means making sure that they are developing the skills that are necessary for the work and that they're able to articulate them, right? And it's meeting them where they are. And so that's what, and we also have a say or a career hack, so to speak, and that's know yourself, know the industry, know the job. Know yourself, know the industry, know the jobs, right? With this career hack, it doesn't matter if you're talking about, applying for a job or searching for a job or doing a resume. If you know yourself, your skills, your interests, your passions, right? It starts there with that personal work. If you know the trends, the issues that are out there,
Yes.
the different organizations and industries that are working on those trends, those issues, and then the specific jobs that are available, right? And how you can apply those skills, that experience to those issues, right?
Yes.
You'll be just fine no matter if there's COVID, no matter if there's a recession. This is like my third, major, catastrophic issue that I've dealt with. So you'll be just fine. So that's where our activity is based around. I'm going to ask a little help, and I want our online audience to participate as well. John, do you mind grabbing? I need I like to call them champions, not volunteers, but a champion to write, and I would prefer a student to do that. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
While setting up, the other part, I think there's some conferences people should go to just to learn what's going on. It may be within your sector or your career interests, but there are other organizations like the Christian Community Development Association that really works on community transformation and what that looks like. You can meet other nonprofits or other ministries, or even some of them for-profits now, or like B Corp, have a social agenda, but they're for-profit. And how does that work? So you can get introduced and get to hear the people and meet them, and hopefully, get enlightened about what's possible in terms of making this a better world.
Yes, no, professional organizations are super helpful. Working here in career services and being a student, they're so helpful for making connections.
Yes.
For networking, as well as finding specific opportunities. They really are helpful. Definitely encourage you to do that. Okay, cool. Thank you so much, Regina. I appreciate you. All right, so what we're going to do, we are going to brainstorm around our career hack, know yourself, know the industry, know the jobs, right? So this is a game, it's a contest, but we're playing this together. Katrina's going to be our scribe. Thank you so much, right? And so we're going to start with know yourself, right? Know yourself. And so we're going to have 2 minutes. This is a timed activity. And please, if you're online, just shoot them through. Katie will get them on here, right? But we want to get the skills that you are acquiring here as students, right? The interests that you have and your passions, right? Skills, interests, passions, whatever they are, just shout them out. We want to write them down on the know yourself. We have 2 minutes. Everyone understand how this is played? Yeah, just shouting stuff out here. 2 minutes going now.
Research.
Boom, 1, thank you.
Yeah.
Storytelling.
Networking.
What skills, what other skills? What are your passions? What are your interests? What are some things you're learning in class? What are some things you're possibly interested in?
Foster care. Someone online said showing compassion, listening, and communication.
Passion, listening, and communication. I love those. Because those aren't needed anywhere, right? We don't need those in, every aspect of what we do.
Inclusion.
About 30 seconds left. This is knowing yourself. Again, what skills are you gaining? What skills do you need to gain? Right? Sometimes it's identifying where the gaps are.
Management.
Beat me on that one.
Empowerment.
We are doing this in a hybrid format, right? We have folks online. This requires a hot technology, maybe. It shouldn't be helping, but I am.
Leading a team from online.
Nice. Empathy, very good. All right, and that is time. Empathy will be the last one. Thank you so much.
That's good. Oh, they're good.
All right, so that's knowing yourself, right? The next one we're gonna tackle is knowing the industry, right? So we talked about some of these skills, we talked about some of these passions, talked about some of these interests, but where are the places that we can apply these skills? I'm thinking more macro, right? What are some companies that we can apply these things? What are some issues, specific issues that we can apply these things towards, right? So that's what we want to get on the next one. It's knowing the industry. Where should we be looking to apply these skill sets? Where should we be looking to follow these passions?
Yeah.
I currently work, so again, I'm justice oriented, right? I currently work at Point Loma Nazarene. That's a college, that's a university, right? I've also worked for the United Way, right? That's a nonprofit. I've also worked at Enterprise Rent-A-Car, right? There's a lot of different ways that you can apply these different places. So I want to start to explore, what types of companies, what types of industries can we apply these skills? So we're gonna have 2 minutes. You get over there, your hand okay?
Yeah.
Sweet, thank you so much. Perfect. You can stick it up.
Yeah, you can tear that off and stick it on the wall.
So for the know the industry, we got 2 minutes. Perfect. Good. And again, we're looking for different companies, different industries, different places where we can apply those skills. Thank you so much. You all ready? And go. Nice. And use that one as a cheat sheet. Therapy, good one.
Government. Law. Policy making. Education.
Absolutely.
Athletics.
Got about a minute left for knowing the industry. Do we see nonprofit already? Gave you guys enough. I can't help myself, sorry.
And there's an array of nonprofits, right?
Yeah.
They have different.
Yeah, and
emphases,
if you
right?
guys want to throw out specific companies, that works too. So I know we have overarching issues, but specific companies, that'd be helpful as well.
Housing authority.
There we go.
Department of Social Services.
That works too. Thank you.
There's community development corporations.
About 30 seconds for knowing the industry.
Church.
Yep.
And I mentioned earlier B Corp. Again, they have a triple or double line, not just earning a profit, but social benefit.
How do you spell it?
B, like a letter B, and corp, like abbreviation of corporation. Some even have a triple line, talk about sustainability as well.
Someone online said reach global,
Okay.
and then also as like a general form, social media.
Yeah. Part of my research looks at how college students are using social media. This is creating so many different avenues for folks to do whatever they want. That is what I'm finding. It's creating a lot of different opportunities. So that's important to make sure we discuss. Cool. And actually, I will grab that sheet from you and put it up there. All right, so we've talked about the different skills that we're gaining, right? And the different passions and interests that we have. We've named a few industries, a few companies where we can apply those things. Now we're going to get into the nitty gritty. What types of jobs utilize these interests, skills, and passions at these industries and companies? What specific jobs can you do with those things is what we want to parse out here, right? What specific job titles that we have. And I've been trying to give you guys hints with my career story. So I worked at Point Loma Nazarene, I've worked at United Way. I'm currently, my title is the Senior Program Manager here, right? Okay, what's your title here?
Coordinator.
Coordinator, right? John, what's your title?
Director of operations.
Okay, so we have some titles, so I can't help but help out.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sorry.
No, that's there.
So we want to look for specific titles on this one on knowing the job. Sound good?
Mhm.
Cool. 2 minutes. Go.
Well, one of my titles is Director of Network Engagement.
I like that one.
That's exactly what I'm doing.
What are some other job titles? Maybe you've seen, you've come across, or maybe what's a job title you possibly would want to have? There's an awesome company, Danny Kim, Dr. Danny Kim, excuse me, used to have my job in career services, now works over in Raindrop. He's the director of people and passion at Raindrop, right?
Yeah.
I want to do that. That sounds cool. What are some other job titles that we can think of within these industries, within these companies, that are utilizing these skills and passions? Anything online, Katie?
Not yet.
Okay, cool.
Well, like you said, what would they like to have or create?
Yeah.
Because it's really open now these days. I mean, I came up with mine because when they hired me, I go, what do you want to be called? I go, let me see what I can do. Or other people have done that. I mean, that director of people and passion.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing there at the beginning, right?
Yep.
And probably help understood what that should be about.
You know, we often say our job is to prepare students for a job that doesn't exist at a company that hasn't been created yet, right? And so we got 30 more seconds on the job titles. We want to get a few more on here. Policymaker. Yeah.
That's good. Yeah.
Social worker.
Mhm.
Boy. Program design, curriculum design, those are all ones that people want.
Yeah.
Consultant,
Mhm.
can move all over the place with that one.
Content creator.
Content creator, right? Evaluator, researcher. I'm trying to name all the ones I had in my head, right? Project coordinator. That was it. Okay.
And time. Thank you so much. We'll get this up here. Thank you online as well for participating. And our scribe, Katrina, thank you so much. How's your arm? Is it okay?
Good.
Make sure we get some ice over here.
And can I just add, you know, we talk about, those are kind of positions that have some status or what have you in general society, but there are others that are really, really important for us to really function as a society or even an organization. So you probably have somebody here in food services, right? He's a coordinator or what have you. Those are important. And I think somebody actually cleans up this place, right? That may not have been a career path, or maybe that's what but they're good at it, or that's what keeps them working, right? So it isn't always have one of status or that comes with a business card, but it's really essential to our functioning as an organization and community and society.
And recognizing that, again, I think it's important for the
Yes.
role of thinking of justice work, right? Thinking of making
Exactly.
sure all voices are heard and at the table and they all encompass who our community here
Yes.
is at Point Loma Nazarene and in the wider community. So acknowledging that is, I think, always important. So thank you so much for bringing that to our attention. So I want to get these on the board just so we can see. Again, we've been talking about career paths. I appreciate so much Dr. Mata for sharing his story and how he's gotten here and sharing words of wisdom with us. But again, we talked a little bit about it's not a linear pathway anymore, and yes, there's something that you walk away with today. You can take your faith, you can take your passions for social justice, and you can apply it in so many different ways. And part of our job at Career Services, why they even invited us here, right, is to make sure that you are able to do that, right?
Yes.
We come to events like this, we come to classrooms and things of that nature. We have lots of different services. I left my calendars, but I will bring them over for students if you need those, to show the different services that we offer, because we truly are trying to change the way that we're doing this. But I hope this is an example. Again, I want you to know that yes, you can follow that passion. Whatever it is, the answer is yes, you can apply that. Your calling to any type of career is the number one takeaway I'd like you all to have. So thank you so much for participating in that activity with us. Katie, are there any questions online that come
Yeah,
through? So we
There's
can ask
actually
those?
two
Yeah.
that, yeah, and afterwards, if any of you guys have questions, we have time for that as well. One person asked, how do you recommend we approach people that are excluding the church from those conversations without making them feel like we are forcing ourselves into the conversation? The second one is clear. How do we approach conversation that there's already a negative bias of the church? So
Yeah,
people who are in these social
Yeah,
justice
right.
conversations have a negative bias of the church. How do we come?
yeah.
into
So
this?
I understand that. Sometimes I say, I don't know, I would probably be an atheist too, in the terms of the God they believe in is not the God I believe in, right? And so I understand where they would be feeling uncomfortable working with people who proclaim a certain kind of faith, right? Maybe that Christian or Muslim or what have you. And so I would say, yeah, you're absolutely right. That has happened and I'm sorry. But let me show you or tell you of a different story, different narrative. I don't have to subscribe to that narrative. I can help them look at that. And then some of it is exposure. Let me let you know what has happened and how we have lived and because of the faith community contributing to that. The civil rights movement would not have succeeded, if you want to say it that word, or had an impact if it wasn't for people of faith, over and beyond the oratory of, what Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., put forth out there too. So time and time again, in terms of apartheid and bringing down it was those that counter the Dutch reform, and they still claim to be Christians, right? And they subscribe to that and held to that. So yeah, I would say, yeah, not a problem. But again, in my example in South LA, people were uncomfortable having the church because of their experiences, what have you. But I also could show where there was an asset and a positive, and let's work on building that up and connecting on that level. Yeah, absolutely.
Can I just add that real quick? Because there's
Yeah.
just touched on something you said earlier, and it's in your humility and just having a humility of recognizing that is their experience, right? And so it's pointless to hide from that. And you want to
Yeah.
address that and recognize that. And our job is to try to rectify that, right? Acknowledge that that's what happened and validate that, but then also say, well, I can show you something different. I can
Right.
show you what it means to actually do the Lord's work, to actually, again, to want to be inclusive, right?
Absolutely.
Through our actions. So again, I like that, again, having that humility to say, hey, no, we're not perfect. And no, the church isn't perfect. I'm not perfect. And I will try to be, right? That's not the goal here. The goal is try to get better, right? To make myself better, to make the world better. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you. And then one other question, kind of following up, I guess. What is your favorite example from the Bible that you might use in conversation exemplifying fighting for the minority and walking towards social justice?
Wow. We got 2
There's
hours,
so
3
many
hours here.
I
examples.
have one. If I can answer
Go
that.
ahead.
too. Yeah, no, mine is Jesus flipping the tables,
Yeah.
right? Like that story has always stood out to me because, again, if you think of, you brought up the civil rights movement, Martin Luther King, and nonviolent resistance. Again, thinking of turning the other cheek, right?
Yeah, right.
But my family's church is on 32nd Hill, St. Luke, Greater St. Luke Church of God in Christ, where my uncle is now the pastor.
Okay.
My grandfather was the pastor before him, and the Jesus that I grew up learning about is that one, a righteous, angry Jesus, but angry specifically because he knew that people were being taken advantage of. He knew that the synagogue was being used, right, to rob and to exploit the masses, right? And so thinking of, again, how do you, as a Christian, how do you carry yourself, right? What do you do? Well, in that example shows me when you see something wrong, you do something about it. You use your privilege, like we talked about earlier, right, to make those changes. Sometimes it looks like flipping over tables, right? And stopping the action right there. Also, what it looks like is, again, working on those institutional systemic changes. It also means coming out and using your time, your talents to mentor, to whatever you can to impact, right? It was to me, that story exemplifies a Jesus, a God who is, again, works on the day-to-day to help the oppressed. So that's my favorite.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Just pops in my head right now of the various ones. I could talk about Jeremiah, whatever. But this aspect of how do we approach and engage what's going on in the community, and more often than not, Jesus was asking questions. And I still think about Bartimaeus, that story of here is a person who is blind and dependent upon people's goodwill to do that. And Jesus comes to him, and I think his disciple says, because he asked that question, what do you want me to do? His disciple said, duh, he's blind, heal him like you do everybody else. But no, he looked at that individual and said, this person has efficacy and agency, and this is not just me doing a good thing for him or expressing something miraculous, but he is part of this narrative, this engagement. And so how do I invite that individual into the answer, right? Or the solution, if you will. And so I think that's part of making things right. You just don't come in and say, I know what's good for you. I'm going to do it for you. Even if you don't want me to, I'll do it for you because I think it's a good thing. He involved in that, because the implications is when we do good, we always assume it's a good thing for everybody. Well, it wasn't going to be a good thing for Bartimaeus because he would now have to look for a job because nobody's going to give him food. I mean, because he can, hey, you can go off the table, you can see. His network, his whole world, even recalibrating how he sees things would have been a more difficult thing. Of course, he wanted his sight, that's what he wanted. But Jesus was asking, do you know what the implications are? I'm willing to do that, but you need to be part of this aspect. I think the work of justice or making things right, again, that's the root word. Making things right means it's a collaborative experience. I engage the people that I want to see something better for, and to being a better steward of what I have, my privilege, my status, the alphabet soup after my name. How do I use that to the glory of God?
Any more
I
questions?
don't have any more questions.
Want to open up to the audience? Any questions from the audience? Totally cool.
Revelation, word of rebuke.
Were you going to be available afterwards for questions?
Yes,
Just
but let me offer this, because this is what I've known from LA is, if you're thinking about going into a particular arena or you're ready to get yourself, more visible, I'm happy to do that. I do that a lot. I should be a Christian headhunter because organizations come for me always asking for, hey, do you know somebody who can do this? This is what we're looking for. We're looking for those people, not only with the skills, but also with the passion in an alignment with, how do we make the kingdom of God tangible in this world today, no matter what sector you're working on. So I'm always I'm always happy to, help you look at that, look at your resume and how to help that, make sure that you are visible and present and they see you as an asset and something that can enhance the mission of that particular organization or ministry. So I offer that.
No, and that is an awesome offer, and I want to make sure they heard that. We have someone who said he should be an executive, headhunter, willing to work with you and willing to help you and willing to pour into you. So you would definitely want to take advantage of that offer. Thank you so much for making.
I finally got my business card, so I'll hand them off to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Well, yeah, I can, we're gonna just end with a few announcements. So Katrina's gonna come up and give some announcements of events.
Now a word from our sponsor. Right?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, thank you guys all for coming, and thank you so much, Dr. Mata, for your incredible wisdom, and Trey for facilitating.
Excellent.
You guys both have, so much wisdom to share, and I hope that you guys were inspired by this. And if you want to get connected with Dr. Mata or Career Services and Trey, or more with the CJR, you can talk to me or Trey or any of the students up here. But yeah, I'm just gonna have Katrina share what CJR has coming up, as well as Mosaic, because this is co-sponsored by those two organizations. So Katrina.
All right, so yeah, we already mentioned this is a co-sponsored event. So here I'm just gonna have you take a second to read them because I'm not in the club and there's a lot of acronyms, but it's Mosaic's upcoming events, and the most recent one that will be coming up is the Asian Student Union Lion Dance activity, and there's a whole bunch more ways to get involved, and I'm sure you can also check out their Instagram and other ways that they have events. But next slide, we have our next week is Live Justice Week. We have as you probably know, we have a different word for each day. So Drink Justice is going to be next Monday, and that will include an ethical coffee competition with some local coffee shops. And that'll be right after chapel. So you can just show up. It'll be a holistic event on like drink consumption and why it's important to make ethical decisions. And then the winner of the coffee competition will be a company that we will try to support because we're trying to highlight these ethical small businesses. Do Justice will be our community panel with people who are doing the work that we're talking about here. Another great panel to plug into. That will be there we go. We've got the dates and everything here, but that will be in Colt Hall, 7 to 8:30. Wednesday is Wear Justice, and we are going to have Art by Elaine come and do customs. We'll have a swap meet outside. So if you're not familiar with that, basically you can bring your own clothing donations. And then for however many items you bring, you get that many tickets to take an item as well. So it's a really sustainable form of donating and consuming clothes. And we also have some educational aspects there. The American Sewing Guild will be having a booth about upcycling. So trying to like learn from the experts that we have in our community here in San Diego. And Eat Justice is a documentary screening. So Kiss the Ground is a documentary. We have the rights for it. And we will have Ben & Jerry's and Tony's Chocolate. Yes, right here.
Can you ship that to me?
Yeah, we have some free mini Tonys in the office too. So if you want to stop by anytime, anyone. And then lastly, Friday, we have Live Justice. It's in partnership with the Sustainability in Action class, but it will be a market and it will be kind of the culmination of all the events, 3 to 5. We have a separate giveaway for this event as well, lots of little prizes, but the full giveaway includes a free beach bonfire for I think up to 4 people, $220 value. And we're planning on getting a Patagonia gift card as well. So every single time you go to an event, that counts as an entry. So come and win some prizes and learn a lot about what we do.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for coming. Thank you.
Yes.
For having us. Thank you, CJR team. Thank you, Mosaic team. Really appreciate everyone coming out. Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, bro, that's good.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah.